I see it all the time, Travis. Every account has these, client I'm working with has these naysayers or these laggards or these, hey, I don't want to do this because I've been successful. Why do I need to do this? Every account has it.
Hello and welcome to Hired the Podcast. Travis Miller, as always, and today I have got Brian Gardner here with me. Brian is a veteran in the sales industry and CRM strategy. Man's got over 25 years of experience. He's transitioned from managing sales in his family's distribution business to founding Celtus, CRM platform for industrial teams. And later, he's currently running Sales Process 360, a consultancy focused on aligning CRM systems with sales processes. Also, the proud author of the brand new book, CEO for CRM, Your Roadmap for CRM Success. He's introducing pivotal role of CEO for CRM to ensure successful CRM adoption because, Brian, as we all know that, adopting a new CRM doesn't always go as smoothly as the sales team promises it will.
No, it doesn't, Travis. And I guess that's what I'm doing because I love doing what I'm doing. And it's CRM stands for what? Customer relationship management. But I think it really stands for a couple other things. Change management. It stands for culture management, culture change. There's just, Anyway, where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with how on earth you got here. So how do you go from working as a sales manager in an industrial distribution company to being probably one of the preeminent evangelists for CRMs and CRM adoption in industrial technology? What's the genesis of that?
Yeah. No, okay. I'll be short. But I'll give you a background. I mean, I'll get you up to speed on that. I grew up in the industrial distribution business, as you said. It was a family business. I don't know. I always say this, so I'll just say it. Tell people I was an SOB. I was son of the boss. I grew up in this business and worked through all phases of family business, from stocking shelves, filling gauges and level gauges and pressure seal systems. We were in the process control, instrumentation, valve and valve automation world in South Louisiana, refineries, pulp and paper, oil and gas, water and wastewater market. And then worked in inside sales, then outside sales, and I was a product specialist, and then ultimately VP of sales. But Travis, long and short, I believe in sales process, and I've always believed in sales process. And so now I'm going to date myself. Now, this is in the mid-90s. I'd implemented some manual processes for doing lead management, opportunity management, project pursuit, quote follow-up, using Excel sheets and access databases at the time. And we started using some contact management system, ACT. But I said, I want to automate this whole process. And so again, look for solutions out there. At CRM, actually, CRM was not even an acronym back then. Now I'm really dating myself. The acronym, 3-letter acronym, was SFA, Salesforce Automation. So I said, I want some of that. I want to take all my manual processes and automate these with this software. So again, compressing the story, I looked at around 6 or 7 different companies that had supposedly solutions. Every one of them had no idea of my business. All they wanted to do was sell me software and then charge me a lot to build it and not even know my business. So I said, no, thank you. And ultimately developed an SFA CRM system for our family business. I partnered with a technology guy who had a very powerful database engine, and we built a SFA CRM system for our business. Had no intentions to go to market with it. And again, compressing the story, a friendly competitor out of Houston, Texas, saw the system that we built. And again, long story short, basically dropped their investment with another company they just hired to build a CRM system and went with our no-name system. Travis, that was the moment in time where I caught the bug. I use the analogy of if you have kids, when someone that you don't know comes up to you and tells you that, hey, your kids are well-behaved or they're polite or they're whatever, it's like, confirming that you're maybe doing the right thing. So with with this company basically dropping at the time, I think it was about a $60,000 investment in their beginning journey of an SFA CRM system, and went with this our no name system. It was kind of a confirmation for me that we might have built something really, really powerful. So went out, raised some money, was totally underfunded, and started a CRM company. Left the family business. My wife and friends thought I was totally crazy. What are you doing? And I said, I caught the bug. I can't say anything else, but I caught the bug. I believe in this so much. So again, compressing the story, that company, the CRM company, was sold about 9 or 10 years ago, and now I'm strictly consulting and coaching companies in the industrial space is my primary market, on helping them get value and return on investment and get the adoption curve up and position it as a competitive edge. All the things that I believe in and have seen and lived. And this industrial market is a lagger in this. It's a total lagger in this. So it's extremely exciting for me where I am in my life, so to speak, to maybe give something back and make the industrial market maybe more technology savvy and using tools to have a competitive edge. The pharmaceutical, financial services, all the they're ahead of the curve with all this. But industrial market, I still believe is a laggy market, and I can maybe bring value there.
Why do you think that is? Because I was talking to Ken Mackin, the CEO of Worker Labs, a couple weeks ago, and he was talking to me about how industrial technology, automation, lags in technology compared to so many other industries. He said there hasn't been a meaningful advancement in robotics in close to 30 years. And why on earth is that? Why do you think that is? That industrial technology, which should be at the forefront of technology, lags behind so much?
I wish I had the right answer for it. I think it's they just, that market is old, kind of, I hate to say this, but again, I think I can say it because I was from it and still in it, was maybe older school, or let's just get out and do some basic blocking and tackling. And we've always done it this way, maybe in the industrial market, there's especially distribution, maybe, family type businesses that just stay, the second and third generation that have continued to do their current processes. I don't know, but it truly is. I mean, so one of the things I do, and I love, I've been doing it for about 9 years now, is I give a CRM class once a semester to Texas A&M's industrial distribution team, the students, they're seniors that are about to graduate. And I open up my session on CRM and I ask the question, I said, what do you think I'm going to talk about today? And, I get all the how to spell CRM and just stuff of, stupid. And I say, well, yeah, okay, but that's not really what I'm hearing. It's like, get their attention. I said, my goal here is to help you get a good job and turn this industrial market into a more evangelist for technology and using technology. And I want to position CRM such that when you hit the marketplace, you're asking the companies you're working with or that you're interviewing with, you're asking them about CRM. You're demanding that they have CRM, and you're kind of being on the forefront of that. That's my goal.
What's the questions you're teaching them to ask? But so that somebody either new to the workforce or out there currently looking for a job can identify the companies that are going to give them the tools and the resources to have the best shot at success.
Yep. So what I have a whole list. That's a great question. I have a list of those in my talk with them. I say, ask these questions. I said, they're interviewing you, but you need to interview them, right? And so I say, ask the questions. The first question is, do you have a CRM system? Yes or no? And that tells you a lot right there. If the answer is yes, then say, here's another next question. What are you doing with CRM? How are you using? What roles in your business are using it? Is it just outside sales, or is it inside sales? Is it service? Is it customer service? How are you using CRM? How have you trained a team on CRM? Is it become SOP, standard operating procedure in your company? Is there a CEO for CRM, which again is kind of the emphasis of my new book? There must be a CEO for CRM, I believe, inside of a company. And so when you ask that question to a company, you'll get real, hey, are they committed to CRM, or is it just check the box? Because it is a culture change.
Yeah, you mentioned that. You said in the book, without a point person responsible for the design, execution, and onboarding of your implementation, it may be doomed from the start. What type of person is the best person to take on that role in an organization?
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, this is my belief, and I guess I'm backing up based on history and working with companies. It must be, I list the traits or the characteristics of a good CEO for CRM. And first off, that person must be in the sales management sphere. They need to be driving the sales processes and best practices. Another term that I'm hearing a lot out there is called sales excellence manager, or companies that are focusing on sales excellence, which I believe CRM is part of that. So again, it needs to be someone that's sales minded. It needs to be someone that has the respect within the team. It needs to be someone that understands all the roles within the company: inside sales, outside sales, customer support, service, marketing, because you're going to have to piece the puzzle together. CRM is not just an outside sales solution; it's a team solution. That person needs to basically sell the concept. Something I promote heavily is you've got to constantly be promoting the why and the what's in it for me, and that's not a one and done. So that there's a lot of what it's not. I don't believe, and again, this isn't any knock on the role. It's just that they don't have the experience in it and can't do the things that are needed. I see a lot of companies turn over CRM because it's considered software to either the IT department or operations. And they need to be involved, I believe, but I don't believe they need to be the leader, the driver, the CEO for CRM. They need to be in the support role. That's just my feeling on that, Travis, from what I've seen out there.
So it needs to be somebody in sales management, sales leadership. But at least in my experience and from what I've heard from a lot of other organizations is that a lot of times the absolute best salespeople in an organization have the most challenge utilizing a tool like this. So how do you handle if people in your organizations like that, but also if the best salespeople aren't your CEO for CRM, who are they?
Well, okay, so let's look at this. It needs to be a hierarchy arrangement with this. There needs to be someone that's driving the vision for CRM and change management, sales excellence, all the things that this is involving, and promoting it, the why. But then you need to have lieutenants out there, whether you're broken up as a company by region or by territory or by industry, that are kind of on the same page and in the field and in the trenches with the team that are promoting CRM. So, if I look at successful companies that I've been involved in, that's what they have. They have the executive buy-in at the CEO for CRM at the highest level, but then they've formed a group of lieutenants, so to speak, that are based on territory, regions, or industry that are promoting CRM and driving the why. Now, every company is going to have a bell curve of early adopters, middle of the road, and laggers. Every company is going to have that. And so, like you said, there's a lot of times I see where the best salesperson is not an evangelist for CRM, or it looks at it as a 4-letter word. They don't want to use it. So those are challenges. Again, there's no easy button. I tell companies all the time, there's no easy button. So what do you have to do with those individuals? I believe is nurture them along. Work with them, coach them as managers, coach them. I'll go back to my days in the industrial world. We rolled this out. I had one of our top salespeople did not want to use CRM. And so just working with them, and I remember that came up, there was a huge project at Monsanto facility in Luling, Louisiana. It was being engineered out of their corporate office in St. Louis at the time. And I said, let's use CRM. I'll work with you. I'll coach you. Let's use CRM through the duration of this project. This was a 9-month to 12-month project, right in the wheelhouse of CRM. I said, let me work with you on this, and let's just use the system. So we would have weekly cadences on this. We would update CRM. We would strategize on how to use CRM. We would document all the stuff we're doing. Long story short, Travis, the purchase order was released. It was over 1 million, maybe 1.4, $1.5 million order released, big order. And all we received was 25% destination credit in the beginning, because the purchasing and the engineering, they said, was out of our territory. It wasn't in our territory. Long story short, we were able to go back in CRM, hit a button, and reproduce the crime of all that we've done for the last 9 to 10 months. And that salesperson got another 35 or 40% commission, which on a big number was a big addition. From that moment in time, that salesperson was kind of sold on this and saw the value of this from complex selling type situations.
If it's not in the system, it didn't happen.
Yeah. And but again, and I just had a coaching session with a client this morning actually, and that example came up with them with one of their salespeople that has been using CRM, and they were able to reproduce the crime, and able to get additional commissions. So I mean, that's just one example. I mean, it's bigger than that, and you got to find other things, but that was just one example of how took a naysayer, worked with them, coached them through it, used the system, and at the end of the day, it brought value, and they kind of turned their mindset around.
How are the best people and the best companies utilizing the CRM to be most effective?
Yeah, no, I thought a great question. My quick answer to that is they position it as a team solution. I tell companies all the time when I'm working with them in the beginning or we're just talking about CRM, my comment to them is if you're looking for this to just be a tool to log call reports, or even just do your Excel spreadsheets to reproduce your Excel sheets for projects or opportunities from the outside sales perspective, you might want to reconsider or hold off on it. It must be positioned as a team solution. Everyone needs to see the value that everyone's getting from sharing and leveraging information as a team. And so, successful companies, I believe, have implemented across the team the different roles: inside sales, outside sales, customer service, marketing, product specialist, management. You know, um, that's just so key for success. Plus, it allows you to position it as a solution to get back to the organization and to the user versus just a user inputting information in.
Hmm.
And then another thing there with that, last thing on that I'm just thinking about is you can also then sell this as a solution for better customer experience. And so I ask companies to think about that. Think about CRM as as a tool to provide a better customer experience. And what I mean by that is if the right hand and the left hand know what's going on, inside and outside sales, let's take that dynamics, right? An inside and outside sales team. Inside salespeople typically touch customers multiple times more than an outside salesperson. Well, if inside sales are logging their critical emails and logging their critical conversations in CRM, that can be shared and leveraged with the outside team. And now when the outside person goes and makes calls, they have information that they can leverage. And in the eyes of the customer, it looks like, they're clicking on all cylinders.
Hmm. I want to go back to the laggards. You mentioned you had coaching calls this morning. How do you get buy-in from those people who have been doing things their own way? They've been wildly successful in business, and company comes in and they're selling the need to implement this new system, and they don't want to do it. They've been successful. They're making money. They're making money for themselves. They're making money for the company. Why should I change? Change is scary. Yeah. How do you... I'm not even asking necessarily how do you coach them, but how do you even get them to be open to coaching?
Well, so let's back up, and you got to look at the situation. So we, on this call this morning, we talked about that with just, and the question I asked was, is that, and again, I'm not trying to be negative, or I wasn't, I don't know the full story. I said, is that salesperson really being successful based on them, or is it partially due to the territory that they're in? I see a lot of that. I mean, a salesperson might have inherited a lot of good territory over the years and reaping the benefits. And again, I'm not being negative on that, but think about that. And then I asked the question, we got to ask the question and try to talk with the naysayers. Are we truly getting the most wallet share that we can be getting out of the accounts? And let's analyze data. Let's take data. And then you start thinking about small projects. So an area that I've worked with companies on this or with naysayers is let's understand their territory, one. Let's understand where the white space is, two. And let's determine whether that those gaps can justify a focused effort to grow the business. If the answers are yes, 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 and you have that, let's use CRM for that and just do a couple handful of things in CRM for them. What example is have them manage their proactive opportunities, I call it. They're opportunities that they want to grow the business, where they're going to basically strategize their little mini business plans. Use CRM for that. Find a couple, when I say a handful, I'm talking maybe 2 to 3 areas that you can work with them on to maybe crack the code or advance the account or advance the territory or advance the product that you're selling for wallet share in there. You got to find those little things. You got to find what motivates those people. Those top salesmen are very competitive, right? Salespeople are very competitive. So maybe you put some metrics in place. Gamification. I've been doing some gamification with CRM. Again, not trying to put anyone down, but people like to see how they compare, you know? So create some metrics, new clients, new opportunities, new leads, new products and new accounts, and where do they rank on that? Top salesperson might be at the bottom of one of those criteria and say, hey, I don't want to be at the bottom of that list. There's no easy, and Travis, I know I said, I wish I had an easy button. There's no easy. You got to find what makes that person tick, what motivates that person, and find a way to leverage CRM to maybe challenge them on that.
I think that's a really good point. And maybe it was a silly question to try and ask for
No silly questions. There's silly questions. I see it all the time, Travis. Every account has these, client I'm working with has these naysayers or these laggards or these, hey, I don't want to do this because I've been successful. Why do I need to do this? Every account has it. Another thing is leverage the other members of the other salespeople on the team, leverage them and have them continually talk about their successes. Earlier this week, I had another coaching client a coaching call with a client, and I talked about sales meetings, and we kind of talked about these naysayers. And my comment was, take a couple of your team members that are truly leveraging CRM and put them up on stage during a sales meeting and have them give best practices and how they're using it. When a peer hears from another peer, I think it sticks more.
More so than top down telling you to do something.
Yes. So whisper in the ear of your successful salespeople that are truly leveraging it and using it, or can talk about some good best practices or use cases of how CRM has brought value to them, and have them put them on the podium at sales meetings to give an overview to the team on how they're using CRM, and let the naysayers and everyone hear that from them.
Can you think of anybody that you turned around? I mean, I know you told the one story about the guy who was able to prove the amount of work he did and get additional commissions, but can you think of anyone who was doing extremely well, was hesitant, and then once they saw the light, they were able to do better work for their companies, help their customers out even more?
Yeah. Okay. So what comes to mind is not an individual. What comes to mind is a company,
a
total company that kind of did so there was a company in Houston. They were a valve automation company. And this was prior to really CRM, or just getting started with CRM. They were a quoting machine. They were quoting everything that they could quote. They were not an order getting machine. They were a quoting machine. They had reached a point with their bandwidth of their people that they were out of bandwidth. They were quoting and spending all their time quoting and not strategizing and not trying to close business. And so, anyway, long story short, company, was like, okay, why do we need the CRM? We're busy enough. Don't add another thing to my plate, right? And I'm like, well, if we can add something to your plate that can make you more efficient and maybe relieve some bandwidth or open up some bandwidth for you, is that a good thing? So again, long story short, we put in place the CRM. We implemented a process for go, no go, simple no go quote, no go for quoting, and we documented that. We remove the feels like. That's another phrase I use in CRM is let's remove the feels like. CRM can help remove the feels, feels like we're going to get this, feels like we're doing well, feels like we know who the decision makers are. You can put processes in place for that. But in this case, the go, no go, we put in place some simple questions. Are we on the approved vendors list? Do we have a champion, that we're quoting that's going to support us when we're not in the room? Do we have a connection at purchasing that So we list about 5 questions, right? And based on those questions, answering those questions, determine whether we quoted or not. So at the end of the day, they started quoting less, but winning more. They increased their sales. And their sales team and inside and outside sales team became, I think, really stepped back and said, okay, wait, this is not a bad thing here. Because we're taking and leveraging data, we're leveraging processes, we're communicating as a team, and we're taking rifle shots at where we need to be spending our time. So it took a whole company that was a naysayer at the time saying, we're too busy for CRM. Don't add another thing to my plate. And we turned that around.
And who was the champion there? Who was the person?
It was the VP of sales. Shelly White, payroll controls, Shelly White. She was great. She was on board. She saw the big picture, and her and I still this goes back 30 years ago, maybe 25 for sure. Okay. Her and I still are in touch with each other. We still communicate. We still, it was not just a business relationship. We became personal friends, and it was great.
So what's next, Brian? We've come a long way from Excel spreadsheets and SFAs to now the amount of tools and technology. I like when you said that CRM, it's a marathon and not a sprint. But when the technology is moving so fast now and so many things and new tools and add-ons and enhancements are coming at lightning speed, if you're trying to run at marathon pace, how can you even keep up with everything that is happening?
Well, first off, you need, in my opinion, you need to step back and get, ask yourself the question, do I want to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, and it's not always, this thing, keeping up with the Joneses with all your personal stuff and buying the boats and this and that. I mean, sometimes you just can't keep up with the Joneses. So you got to do a self-analysis as a company and as a CEO for CRM is driving the vision here of, hey, do I want to keep up with the Joneses, or what should I focus on? And that's the bigger question. What should I focus on? I believe CRM is a marathon, not a sprint. And what I say there, continuing that, is I believe CRM is should be done in phases. Okay. And you're not going to leverage all of CRM's capability, especially at the speed of light of change that's happening, right? We'll talk about AI in a second. But so you do this in phases. So start with some basic blocking and tackling, and then once you've finished that. So typical example of phase one, which is probably what you're asking, is typical things like, let's get a standard contact database, one source of the truth for contacts. That might sound remedial, but it's that's a win in itself. Okay, let's get our arms around the opportunities that we're pursuing and really understanding our forecasts for leading indicators. Let's get a handle on our quote follow-up processes. Let's get a handle on some key accounts and growth accounts and start doing a little white space analysis by our products or services so we know where to spend our time. If we just do those 3 or 4 things, you're ahead of the curve. Most companies are, especially in this industrial space. Once you've accomplished that, then you look at what's the next. What do they say? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, or how do you eat a big steak one bite at a time, right? You do this in phases. That's what I mean by marathon. It's not you're not going to run a marathon in the sprint the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to pick what you want to focus on. The big buzzword, obviously, the shiny new tool is AI, and I want to be very, very clear. I know enough about AI to make me dangerous, but I am nowhere near an expert on AI. I'm trying to learn. In fact, I'm going to an AI conference next month to get more acclimated about this. But here's what I do believe. I believe, and again, I'm speaking from the industrial market side, right? That's the world I live in. I believe most companies in the industrial space are not ready for AI. Why? Because their data is not clean. Their taxonomies are not clean. Their hierarchies, their industry associations with data is not. So the things they want to use AI for, it's not clean. I tell companies all the time, let's get our house in order. Let's get our house in order before we tackle this new shiny new toy called AI. And that takes time. That's not easy. There's no easy button for that. I worked with a client. We rolled it out in December of last year. We spent about 6 months preparing and building the system. Just to give you an idea, they went from, don't hold me exactly to this, it was maybe 28,000, 30,000 accounts in their system in ERP that they wanted to migrate to CRM. And before we did that, before we hit integrate, before we hit download, we said, let's look at this. Are they by sites? What's the taxonomy? Do we have the industry codes? Do we have their NISI codes and all that stuff? Is all this organized right? No, we had to go clean house. We had to get our house in order. We got it down to 2,800 accounts that are real accounts that CRM needed to play with. Yeah.
What was all the dirty data? How did you figure out?
Ship twos, multiple bill twos, duplicate accounts because no one checked. There wasn't duplicate checker. They didn't get down to sites. Within CRM, you need to have it down to sites, meaning Shell Norco, Shell Geismar, Shell Mobile, Shell Houston, not just Shell with all the different ship tos. Because your transactions that are going to happen in CRM are down at the site level. What you're doing at Shell Houston is different than Shell Norco or Shell Baton Rouge or Shell New Jersey or Shell Chicago.
So what are you hoping to find out about artificial intelligence and sales enablement?
Yeah, I just want to understand how companies are using it. I want to hear some stories. I want to hear best practices. I want to confirm my thoughts on having your house in order and having clean data and your taxonomies and your hierarchies, your product and manufacturer taxonomies, and all that stuff that I think needs to be in order that I work with companies on. And we spend a lot of time in the beginning of implementation to clean house, so to speak, or get our house in order. Before that, I want to confirm that. I'm going there as a sponge. I'm going there as a sponge. I want to be able to take what I learned back to the clients that I've been working with that are maybe ready for it now, that their house is in order and they've got some runtime under their belt and they're ready for phase 2 or phase 3.
Have you seen anyone doing anything particularly interesting with it yet?
No, I don't. There's things like, okay, automated quote follow-up. So after 7 days, we'll write some automation to follow up using Salesforce Agentforce. I've had some talks about that with clients that they can do some automated of things, but those are all high level. I personally, and again, I want to be very clear, I personally have not implemented or been involved in any AI related successes or stories with CRM.
Got it.
Because again, I do believe, and get back to one of our original conversations, the industrial market is a lagger. I think they're a lagger with this as well.
Well, there's it's great transition here. So what can companies do to get ahead of the curve, especially when it comes to having the right people on board? What's the companies that are trying to implement this strategy or have implemented it, they've gotten the bug. What's the best hiring process to identify people that are going to help them continue on this journey?
Well, that's great. So again, I go back to my what do I kind of talk to the students, the seniors at Texas A&M's industrial distribution. You need to interview the company. You need to let them know that you know what CRM's about. You need to let them know that you understand about sales processes and how it's important to all the things that CRM brings to the table. So I guess what I would say for companies who are hiring or expanding, make sure you bring on people. The new people you bring on are on the bus for CRM. They are on it. Maybe they have more experience with it. Maybe if they're a new person coming out of college or out of some technical institute or whatever, at least that they understand what CRM's about. The nice thing about those employees is there's no bad habits. They just you need to make sure they believe in that. Another thing I look for is I would look for, if I'm in the management position today hiring salespeople, how do they adapt to change? Or do they just do a tailspin when something changes? I mean, the world's changing, everything's changing. Okay, I might tell them they need to change the way that they do their expense tracking. Oh my gosh, they go into a tailspin. Are they going to take it with stride and say, okay, I get it, let's move on? So you look for characteristics about how do they handle change, because back to what I said earlier, I believe CRM not only stands for customer relationship, it's changed for change management. It's changing behaviors. It's changing the management style, both as a management as individuals.
Well, you talk to a lot of companies out there, and I'm curious, Brian, what do you see? What are you hearing from your customers about the direction of the industry? Industrial manufacturing, industrial tech, where are we headed over the next 6, 12, 24 months?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any aha. I haven't heard of any aha. It's, I think people are waiting for this past election and, okay, it's going to open up some markets and this and that. I think, I've gone through some of the association meetings. I had the economists talk, and their comment that I've heard is, and again, this is not me, this is what I'm hearsay, that, things in the industrial market are going to look good for probably the next 4 or 5 years, but 2030 might not, and again, okay, well, what's that mean? Is there scare tactic? I don't know, but the near term future I hear is pretty bright. It's I see more and more companies acquisitions. I mean, my gosh, the keep getting bigger, right? So I've been working with a lot of clients that, I started with with a company, and now they brought me in because a company bought them and has 34 other companies. So I see that trend. Obviously, I mean, that's not an aha moment, but I see a trend in this industrial space about the companies buying other smaller distribution or service companies and putting them into their portfolio. Now, with that, it's going to cause a challenge. And again, I was involved with a company who did that about 2.5, 3 years ago. That was like crazy buying companies. The question there is now creating the standards across all the companies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you don't, in my opinion, if you don't have a common CRM platform and you got people doing things differently and you haven't created the best practices and the standards and the expectations, it's going to make that acquisition more difficult to kind of fall in line with the company culture, because now you got multiple company cultures that you're trying to build into one. So that comes back to handing the standard operating procedures, leveraging CRM for standards across the board and training to the whole team on those standards and best practices.
Well, Brian, I appreciate it. There's a lot of work for a lot of companies to be done. Probably shouldn't say this on air, but ours included. You give me some really good ideas. So, Brian, who are the best people that should be reaching out to you, and what should they be reaching out to you about, and how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can go to salesprocess360.com and see our team and what we're about. And there's obviously ways to get a hold of us. I guess what we believe our secret sauce is and what we're passionate about as a team. And again, we're not huge. There's 4 of us on the team, but they're all from the industrial marketplace. They've all been involved in CRM and they're on the CRM bus, so to speak, right? They caught the book. Is that I feel our secret sauce is it's not just about CRM, it's about business processes and business practices. And so all of us on our team have been involved in running a sales organization in some form or fashion in the industrial market. So we understand that side of the business, and we feel we understand how CRM needs to be wired and what the value of CRM is. So we believe those two not our background in both understanding the industrial market from the sales pursuit side and then understanding CRM, how they need to be married. I think that's what I think our value is. So I'd love to talk with companies or individuals who want to talk more about CRM. If call me, reach out to me and just have a 10-minute, 15-minute call with me. And, I tell companies all the time, if you're not ready for CRM, I'll be the first to tell you. Okay. And I don't want to be involved with a non-success. I'll be positive, a non-success. And CRM is not for everyone. So if you haven't checked some of the boxes or aren't ready for it based on what I've seen in the marketplace, I'll be the first to tell you that. And so maybe they can use me as kind of a go no go, just like that quote no go, go no go for CRM. I don't know. As I said, Travis, where I am in my stage of life, so to speak, or working life, I'm enjoying the heck out of what I'm doing. And if I can bring some value to the industrial marketplace and make them not a lagger with this, that's what my goal is right now in life. That's what gets me up in the morning and gets me excited.
Let's keep them going. Brian, congratulations on the new book, CEO for CRM, available on Amazon. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, as always, to Noah Cuff, our producer, that's been hired the podcast. Talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.